A shirtwaist striker once said, "It was not a woman's fancy that drove them to it, but an eruption of long smoldering volcano, an overflow of suffering, abuse, and exhaustion." She was referring to the women striking against the shirtwaist factory. Today we are going to talk about the Triangle Factory fire of 1911 and how it could have been prevented. The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory was located in White Plains, New York. Many women reported to this building every day. It was owned by Max Blanc and Isaac Harris. Max Blanc and Isaac Harris were often referred to as the Shirtwaist Kings. They ruled over these people as if they were kings and these people were their peasants. And I guess in a way you could consider that true. Most of the workers were immigrants and they couldn't stand up for their rights. They had nowhere else to go. Many of these women were as young as 14 years old. The Shirtwaist Factory was much like a sweatshop. Their regular week's worth of pay was $6. They worked from 7 in the morning until 8 at night in terrible working conditions, only getting 30 minutes for lunch. It was unsanitary, unhealthy, and very dangerous environment. Many young girls and even children working in the shop, extremely low wages. Many fire hazards, locked doors, rusty fire escapes, cluttered workspaces, oily floors and countertops, whisker baskets and scraps of fabric, boxes crowding the exit. If simple precautions were taken, 164 lives would have been saved. If they would have kept the doors unlocked, even if the employees were not allowed to use them. If they had practiced good housekeeping, had proper safety nets, sprinkler systems, a fire escape plan, even just eliminating smoking in the facility or not using gas lights, this could have been prevented. And the women of the Women's Trade Union League told them that. They picketed and they fought against all of these working conditions and respect for women and work in the society. They demanded a change. And it wasn't just them. There was 400 workers that walked out of the shirtwaist factory alone. And then months later, if they had listened, this fire would not have occurred. There is no evidence of how the fire started, but there's so many ways that it could have, from gas lighting to smoking inside. When the fire started on the 8th floor around 4:30 p.m., the workday ended and employees went to leave. They couldn't leave. They couldn't go out the elevator because the smoke and the flames were coming up from the 8th floor. Many employees tried the door to the fire escape and it was locked. They broke windows and some even jumped to their deaths just to avoid being burned alive. Some hid in the bathrooms to try to hide from the fire but ended up dying anyway from smoke inhalation. Fire trucks did come within minutes, but even they couldn't help. They were not prepared for something like this. Their hoses only reached the 3rd and 4th floors. Their ladders only reached the 6th. And the nets that they had, victims fell right through the nets. May we never forget the lives lost that day. And remember that this is why we have safety laws in place to protect people from accidents like this from happening. I have provided some newspaper articles. The community went crazy. It was time to stand up and do something about women's rights and everybody's rights in the workplace. The trial of Max Planck and Isaac Harris. They denied all responsibility, and on April 11th they were indicted on 7 counts, charging them with manslaughter in the 2nd degree. And yet they still only got a slap on the wrist. They ended up being acquitted of any wrongdoing after stating that they had no knowledge that the doors were locked. After this, 23 individual civil suits were brought against the owners. 3 years after the fire, they settled by paying $75 per life lost. The relief work was amazing, though. Many organizations came together to help the families of the victims. They distributed weekly pensions and helped with care for the young. They secured work and proper living arrangements for the workers who did survive. It is estimated that around $30,000 was raised for the victims and their families. And remember the Triangle Fire Coalition. They fought for a memorial to be built. And finally, in 2013, there was a competition launched for who would be responsible for building the memorial. And now the job has been granted to Yuri Wegman and Richard June Yu. And soon we will have a memorial. Thank you for joining me today. And please remember what you've learned.